Hello again, friends. This is the novel A Look in the Dark, chapter 6, which is called Face to Face. This chapter is going to be in 3 parts, and this is the first part. As he was towed down the branch line for Windsor, Dany tried to smother his apprehensions. Giving up on the copy of the Daily Mail he'd purchased, he took instead to studying his fellow passengers for the few minutes it took to draw up to the platform in the historic town. Never having been in Windsor before, he sought directions from a porter to the Guildhall. Checking his watch as he left the station, he was pleased he had 45 minutes before meeting Stanhurst. Looking across the road and up at the wall of Curfew Tower on Windsor Castle, he almost missed the cafe in Thames Street. A slow sipping of his coffee gave him time to evaluate the situation. Even if Stanhurst thought he was a danger to him, the meeting him in a very public place, there'd be little danger. Even so, as he swallowed the last of his caffeine fix, his hand was shaking, and he knew he had to do better than that. 20 minutes more. His heart was not beating in its usual unnoticed fashion. Taking a few good deep breaths, he left the cafe to walk up the hill near the castle walls. Somehow he felt that he had some personal advantage if he was there first, as if Stanhurst was coming to meet him, rather than him going to meet Stanhurst. Right or wrong, that was how he felt. He narrowly missed treading on a pigeon on the pavement as he avoided a group of tourists. Think of the birds, Dany, he told himself. Think of the birds and get out there on the high wire. As he crossed over at the top of Pescud Street, he glanced left at the dark, forbidding statue of Queen Victoria. Did she really look like that? His smile helped him relax, but the Empress of India was not amused and did not return his smile. Crossing over to the other side of the High Street, he entered the Guildhall's raised platform area under the cover of the overhanging upper floor. Standing with his back to a pillar, he scanned the street briefly but could not locate Carol. He did not doubt that she was there somewhere, and he was very aware that her backing was going to be very important now. A male schoolteacher walked behind Dany with about 20 pupils, all teenagers, and a female colleague. Dany turned his back on the street. When Sir Christopher Wren discussed the plans for this building, the authoritative man informed his pupils, he was told by local councillors that the upper part of this building would not be safe without more support. In the end, and after due argument, he conceded and put in these columns. He pointed at one of the columns as if it had offended him. However, if you were to climb up and look, you would notice a gap between each column and the upper floor. So although he put them in to satisfy the critics, still Wren vindicated the original plan. The gaps are still there. We can all learn from one such as Wren. Spencer, are you with us or having a day out on your own? Sorry, sir, I was looking at the Bentley that just rode past, sir. Bentley's nothing when compared to this building, Spencer. 250 years old and more, and still such a fine building. Yes, but it can't do 100 miles an hour, can it, sir? All right, Philpot. The schoolmistress corrected the boy's cheek, but still smiled as all the girls laughed. Dany Greene decided he liked Philpot. Looking again at his watch, he noticed it was 11:23. No sign of Stanhurst. Thinking about Wren and those pillars, he was impressed with the architect's confidence. Looking again swiftly up and down the street, he couldn't see Carol. There were too many people about to pick out individuals, and the Guildhall was getting crowded. As the sound reached his ears, Dany was aware of a military band. Fairly quickly, the band was upon him, marching past the Guildhall in the direction of the castle. As the regimental band bashed out the Rose and the Laurel, Carol was tapping her feet in time with it from the other side of the High Street. She'd been close enough to see the school party arrive at the Guildhall. Now she watched as a very smart, charcoal-grey, business-suited man in his mid-50s appeared on the Guildhall raised area. He was slightly balding with a hint of grey along the side of his head. Carol couldn't see his face. As the crowd moved off the steps of the building in pursuit of the band, Carol noted that her dad looked like a man about to deliver his speech. Well-dressed, slightly balding, dark-suited Stanhurst opened up a newspaper, not even glancing around him. Somewhere a clock struck the half hour. Go for it, Dany boy, she mouthed in a tiny whisper. Dany must have got the wording right about Cyprus, because Carol saw him and the Major briefly shake hands and converse. Leaving the Guildhall, the two men walked in the direction that the band had taken. Carol moved in the same direction but on the other side of the road. She gave Cayley's department store and its row coat of arms a final glance, wondering whether the Queen had ever purchased a pair of jeans. A group of Japanese visitors were walking in the right direction a little ahead of her, and there was plenty of people around. It wouldn't be hard to blend in as far as Carol could see. There were so many cameras and video cameras about that her own battered old single lens reflex didn't look out of place either. Many people had come to Windsor with the intention of taking photographs. Carol thought about how much more obvious, how hard it would be to go unnoticed in her town of Dungannon. Dany, alias Richard Ashby, and Major Stanhurst were now close behind the same school party that Dany had encountered earlier. Also, Carol could see a policeman in the same area. Crossing the road while the traffic was at a standstill, Carol ignored the whistle from a taxi driver, keeping her eyes on a man about 50 yards ahead. As she shortened the distance just a little, she was thinking how much she would like to explore this whole area. Coming to the corner, near the statue of Queen Victoria, the two men turned to the right and were now walking toward the castle. Carol felt she might be a bit close, but she didn't want to lose them in the 30 or so people who were around the castle entrance seeking to get inside. Pausing for a second to take a shot of Queen Victoria, Carol hurried to the entrance as the two men had already passed through the gate. Carol didn't panic, and sure enough she saw them on the other side once she was inside the castle grounds. As she passed through the gate she put on her sunglasses, and given the young policeman nearby a friendly smile, she was hoping that she would not need to call on him for help. Once through the gate she walked behind an American couple in middle age, and the somewhat excited lady was telling her husband something important. "See, honey, that's the Royal Standard flying on the round tower, so Her Royal Majesty or one of the other royals is in residence. Just think she could be up there at one of those windows right now looking out at us." Carol noted that Honey was not impressed. She guessed rightly that it was not the Queen annoying him, but rather the way his wife always seemed to know more than he did. Increasing her pace a bit, Carol watched as Stanhurst and her husband passed the changing guards at the front of St George's Chapel and walked towards some battlements. She was finding it quite hard to pretend to be a sightseer when she was not. All that history and she couldn't give it any attention properly. So far, Stanhurst had engaged Ashby in an opinionated small talk. Dany wanted to get onto the birds, but he knew patience was the only way. He did show some genuine interest in the history lesson the Major was delivering. Going back through the developments of the castle site, he'd now reached William the Conqueror, who seemed a special love of his. He was now extolling the virtues of the Norman prince, much as a 1930s youth might have praised Adolf Hitler in Germany. William of Normandy was a man in the true sense, Ashby. He did not let opportunity slip through his fingers, and he got to own most of this island. Do you not admire men like that? The question was more of a command, coming from the clipped, accented and commanding person of the Major. "Well, Major, I agree that he was not short of ambition and used his power to his own advantage." "Yes, Ashby, but he had a brain as well as power, not like the sponge heads that filled most of our recent history. William made the people respect him. He was a genius, Ashby." Dany looked into the hard face of the balding, fair-haired Major. Those penetrating blue eyes gave no more away than the castle battlements did. Daniel didn't risk pointless confrontation, though he knew well the cruel methods of the Norman ruler, taking what he wanted, burning much else, and taxing the people to the very limit. The two men paused by a cannon pointing out across the land below the fortified walls. "So, Ashby, you want to know about birds?" "My client does, Major Stanhurst. I'm only his agent." "And what does your client want from me?" "A number of things, but first he wishes to run a test." "I can assure you, Ashby, nothing about me needs anybody testing it." A loud slap of the hand on the barrel of the cannon accompanied the irritated response. "I told my client you'd say that. Nonetheless, he instructed me to ask you to get him a pair of cockatoos." "What kind of cockatoos?" "A pair of white-tailed cockatoos." "No problem, Ashby, but the price will be high." So, the negotiation for birds in an illegal trade has begun. Will this give Dany and Carol what they're looking for? Clues on how to find out more about this illegal trade? See how big it is? Listen to the next episode. Thank you, my friends. Bye for now. Bye-bye.